Hi, today we're going to be doing our yellow peony on canvas using acrylic paints. I've transferred the design. I have some photocopies of the design, and I put pencil on the back of the design so that I could transfer it onto the canvas. This works for acrylic. If you were doing oil painting, pencil lead would smear all over the place and be a problem. All right, if you look at it and you see that there is a place where the pencil isn't very defined, if you wanted to, you could come back in and add. I see that there's a line missing right here. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to remember that it is there. I will go ahead and give myself a little note by putting an X on that place. That'll be a good reference point for me. All right, so we're using these Master's Touch acrylic paints. When you're painting on paper, you can always just add water. But when you're working on canvas, you'll want to go ahead and use like a flow medium or various other mediums that they have to make your paint not quite so thick for most applications. I think it's a lot easier to control how much of the fluid you get by using a dropper as opposed to trying to tip some out of the container. So for this amount of paint, I think 3 drops of the flow medium should be enough. I've gone ahead and pre-mixed some of the light yellow, medium yellow, and dark yellow with the flow medium so that you didn't have to watch me do it. I also added in just the slightest tint of, or just a little tiny bit of this dark purple because the yellows seem to me to be extremely bright. There's just a personal preference. You could use them as they are. I chose to add a little purple to bring them down a notch. Okay, so we're going to mix that in. And each color that you're trying to use is going to have some slight variations for how much of the flow release you're going to need to get it soft. It looks like I need to add like 1 more drop of the flow medium to the white to get it softened up. Now, sometimes I have advocated for using a drop of water on the top of your acrylic paints. You're not going to want to do that when you start working on canvas. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. It's kind of the consistency of, I don't know, a pudding maybe? Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and add 1 more drop of the fluid because I kind of want a thick cream texture. And then just wipe it off of your, scrape up the paint into 1 blob, mostly so that it doesn't dry out, less surface. You give it the longer your drying time should be. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and grab our 1/2-inch brush, and we'll go ahead and get that brush wet just so that the paint doesn't become glued up inside. We'll blot off most of the water. Then we're going to load our brush with our lightest color on one side and our yellow base color that we're going to use on the other, kind of mix it in, and then just start in. I'm going to start with the outer edges. We'll come back and add in highlights and stuff here in a minute. Don't worry if you get over the lines just a little bit. As long as the paint isn't thick, it's going to be covered up anyway. You could always also use a smaller brush. I'm trying to use a slightly larger brush just so that I can get it covered quickly, so that you're not sitting here all day and all night watching me paint. And you just go ahead and proceed with this all the way around the painting. Get more paint if you need it. And I don't care if I get some ridges of the white. I think that looks kind of cool. It's up to you whether you like it or not. This is still reading pretty bright. I might have needed to use a little more purple, but I'm hoping it'll come down when the color will come down a little bit when I come back with some of my shading and such. And you just would work your way around. Okay. And then you can look at it and determine what do you want to do next. You could just come in and do the next set of petals right beside it, which is what I'm going to do because I really want to get on to showing you the shading and such that you're going to do. But you can go ahead and put it in. You're going to want your white side to really be showcased against the darker of the piece that's to the center. Okay, so you can start to get a feel for how that's going to be. All right. So we're going to dry the brush, and we're going to get a smaller brush, and we're going to just look at this. We're working right in here in this area. This darker color, I forgot to get water. This darker color is pretty intense. So we're going to get a little bit, and we're going to come in here behind this. And we're going to add in a little of the shadowed color. And maybe on this wider leaf, we might actually want to use a little of our medium yellow. See, I'm kind of blending it in a little bit. All right, and then we're going to get a little of our darker and bring it in underneath. So it actually is easier if you do one set of petals at a time, starting with, say, your outer petals and coming inward, and that way you don't have to worry about what's going on over here, which is the ridge of white paint. But if you do it with the the beauty of acrylics, and one of the reasons I showed this is that with acrylics you can always come back in and go over an area, which you can't really do with oil, or not oil paints. You can go over it, but with your watercolors you really can't. All right, and this flow stuff with your acrylic paints allows you then to do some blending. It slows the drying time. All right, so I talked about how once you did this, you could come back with just your white if you wanted to. See, this is where you're the artist and you get to decide how you think it looks good. Okay, just come in with your white, put it back over the top of your leaf behind. And add your shadowing in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and keep working on this until I have the flower petals done. And when we get to the center, we'll stop and we'll look at it and I'll show you the next steps.